expressed on the internet would be censored.
We are live. We are live. This is real. Welcome back to Unauthorized Opinions, UOPod.com. Like, share, subscribe.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way.
I literally went to the polls with nothing in mind. I saw a can of orange soda in the parking lot. And I was like, yeah, there we go. An unopened can of orange soda just chilling in the parking lot. I was like, yeah, I got to vote for Trump, dude.
Your podcast sucks. It's mental, mate. It's absolutely mental.
I'll be honest, I thought it was kind of offensive when you talk so much about the Loch Ness Monster.
Political climate.
And Andrew, treat yourself, okay? Especially if you start, I don't know, getting in good with homeless people.
Unauthorized Opinions, streaming everywhere at uopod.com. Cock-a-doodly-doodly-doo, man. Oh my god, we're back. It's another Super Sunday, a Super Bowl Sunday, if you know what I mean. It is Juneteenth, I think, even though it's the 23rd. I don't know when Juneteenth is. We've been celebrating nonstop since we imagined it happened in my house. And the party hasn't stopped. We've been watching everything that we think would inspire us to be more inspired by Juneteenth. We've been watching The Acolyte, the Star Wars show. We've been watching MTV, as you can see by my shirt. We've been watching anything starring Ryan Reynolds, really. And, of course, we've been listening to a lot of Taylor Swift and listening to players from the French soccer team from France in the Euros and the international tournament that's happening right now. Conveniently, those are all the topics we'll be discussing today on Unauthorized Opinions. uopod.com. Thank you for watching on Rumble, X, and YouTube, and even Twitch. And thank you for listening on Google, Apple, and Spotify. If you have not done so already, please give us a subscribe. Please check out the Patreon at patreon.com/uopod. And please, if you're listening on the audio platforms, go ahead and give us a follow and a review. I think there's one mean review on there, or two, that are weighing us down, and we need you to counteract that with the deserving 5 stars that we like. An Uber driver who gives you climate control of your seat, who puts an air freshener in there, who puts on the right music. We deserve those 5 stars. And of course, you can also support the show with super chats. We're going to get into this lady from Star Wars, the Acolyte, which, you know, if you're following this at all, you don't have to be watching the show. The Acolyte has the worst, I believe, score of any Star Wars production of all time, apart from it's like 1979 or something, Ewok Christmas special with Chewbacca and whatnot, but it has 13% on the tomatoes that are rotten from the audience, and that is deserving. Everybody has watched it and said, you know, this is weird. This is super, super pride. And the producer, the writer is a lesbian. Her lesbian wife is in the show. The star of it, this Amandla Stenberg girl, apparently identifies as non-binary and gay. And this has caused a problem with the producer. She doesn't like that everybody thinks her gay production is gay. And we're not being mean here. We're not trying to be anti-gay, because we aren't by any means. We are anti-insanity. So Stenberg, who identifies as non-binary and gay, apparently, you know, is joined by a different star. Sorry about that. She's joined by a different star who is also gay and came out as gay at 13, which we all know is what you do. And that's a Jedi in the show. The producer's wife plays a Jedi Master in the show. And then they have Carrie-Anne Moss playing a Kung Fu Jedi Master in the show. And then there's 2 lesbian witches in the show who can conceive life, so they're more powerful than anybody's ever been in Star Wars. And it goes on like this. And then another girl in the show is in love with the main character, who's also a woman, and they're all women. There's your... I mean, could this look any more like Cartman if they were to put, like, when they dress Cartman up as Kathleen Kennedy, who, of course, is in charge of this show ultimately. So all these things go into Star Wars being 13%. And people don't like it. People are saying, why am I watching this? Why is Disney putting out such dribble under the Star Wars banner? And that star, Amandla Stenberg, who has been an actress since she was a teenager, who is, of course, non-binary and gay, which, you know, you got to have two. You're only non-binary or gay. Let me show you to the gulags, is what they're going to say. You need two. You need 2 items of intersectionality on your bingo card, or else you are going to be subjected to slave labor in the new California Republic. But Amandla Stenberg came out with a rap. She came out with a rap on Juneteenth, I believe, which is why we're celebrating it. And she said, Juneteenth, black heart. I guess in this world, a black heart doesn't mean like soulless. It means a black person's heart, which is weird. Shows how intelligent she is. So, and to those who are flooding me with intolerable racism, since it took me 72 hours on my laptop to make this song and video, you got 72 hours to respond. So I think that we've reached the limit. That was a few days ago. And we can talk about how everybody's social media, if they're online, is flooded with hate. The more popular they get. I mean, Drake will tell you that. But there is still no inclination with any people who work on any of these shows that it's because of their product, because it's a weird product, because you focused on sexuality and gender in Star Wars, which no one ever has in the history of the show. Completely changed the storyline of the series, and you're just like, racism. And I get it. Racism is monetizable. Sexism is monetizable. But few have the courage like Amandla does to say, I'm going to turn that into a Pro Tools anti-oppression rap song. And if you're watching this and this part gets taken out, just know that you should go to Amandla, because it's not Amanda, it's Amandla, because she's an artist. You can find it anywhere on the internet if you want to, if this part is cut out. Let's hear it. This really feels like, first of all, she didn't make it herself. That's obvious. She didn't set up different camera angles herself, and she didn't record it herself. She didn't edit the audio to make it clean herself, and take out the breathe ins and the breathe outs. It feels like to me the lyrics were kind of like when you're a teenager and you're alone in your bedroom, and then you're like whispering in a video or something, or on the phone, so your parents don't hear you. That's what the vibe I'm getting from that is. And if we take a look at these lyrics, she talks about that interview with Trevor Noah, where, I thought that maybe, there was just a joke that was cut out of it, but it was one of those instances where the out of context clip was actually the correct one, where she's saying, white people are so racist that I thought that talking about a young man getting killed or a boy getting killed, I thought they might finally have some humanity for black people. As if to say, white people are so hateful that they don't care about the death of black people. That's what she's saying. And so I was wrong about that. I inappropriately gave her the benefit of the doubt. And now she comes out with this song talking about misinformation. Talks about Childish Gambino and his song and how amazing that is. And it goes on like this. So 400 years, let's bring these lyrics back up here. 400 years of taking their bullish. If you don't, and this is the part, we'll play this now. This is the part where she expresses the fact that, her internalized racism basically drives her crazy. I mean, she said she did this herself, but obviously somebody's filming her do this. If you don't confront your internalized racial pain, it can give you some sort of illness, and her ancestors don't confront the pain that you live with. It'll manifest as addiction, diseases, and hate. So I'm not going to be caught giving her the benefit of the doubt anymore. I'm going to say that Amandla Stenberg thinks that if you're sad from things that you aren't affected by as a very rich, half-white Disney actress, that it's going to manifest yourself with diseases. This is some very it's strange. It's very progressive, pharmaceutical. It's against the pharmaceutical industry, which I think that our sponsors would be pretty disappointed to hear, that this is not something that you could just cure with a few pills, but this is more holistic issue that she's dealing with internalized racism. But the mean comments online about Star Wars aren't because she's black for the most part. They are because she sucks. And the show, as we've described, is stupid. And you can't help but think that after thing after show after movie after ruined Snow White or ruined Star Wars or ruined whatever, that Kathleen Kennedy is so dead set on destroying everything that Disney is, that she's not going to stop. And it's come to this point where the Stenberg girl, the Headland girl who writes the show, they're not just going into this thinking, let's make a great show out of this, let's make a great product. What they're saying is these people who are fans of this are such pieces of garbage. They're really human waste. And we need to change everything they love so that they know that they're terrible. That's what they're doing. I mean, these women come out and they say that the Star Wars fans are bad people. Kathleen Kennedy comes out and says that everybody who's involved with Star Wars, it's a woman, gets abused by male fans. Of course, we won't remember like Princess Leia, who everybody loved, and Queen Amidala, Natalie Portman, who everybody loved. We can't talk about them. Or Rey, the other girl that everybody has loved, even if they don't like the story, which most people don't like the story. They go into a show like this and they say, we're gonna put a chick in it and make it lame and gay, because that's what these scumbags deserve. These scumbags, these Star Wars fans, these Disney fans, the little girls who think that they can just enjoy a show, and the little boys who think that they can just wield a lightsaber at home, they're actually cancers on the planet, and we need to teach them a lesson by tanking our own company. Because you know what? When this happens and they come out and say the right things, they say the pro-pride things and the pro-race things, which is, of course, a very weird world to live in, they get promoted anyway. So even as Disney inevitably fails, and Bob Iger fails, and Kathleen Kennedy fails, as long as they say the lines, Bart say the line, I didn't do it, they will be failed upwards. But if we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, we can look at Star Wars movies that are upcoming. And the next Star Wars movie that is upcoming will be put a chick in it, making lame and gay. And just like the way they made, women the all-powerful beings that create life without a man in the Acolyte, the next Star Wars is going to be, a female Jedi is actually the best, not Luke Skywalker, not Anakin Skywalker. And I want to show you, this is, we're giving the benefit of the doubt here. This is the new Star Wars director. Her name is Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. And I don't want to hear anything about the stereotypes involved with this. But she's a Canadian-Pakistani journalist, filmmaker, and political activist known for her work in films that highlight gender inequality against women. That's not me. That's Wikipedia, which is by no means centrist, right-wing, far-right. This is a left-wing activist company describing the new Star Wars director as a gender inequality activist. Let's get her to direct Star Wars. That's what somebody said. That's what Kathleen Kennedy said. She's slated to direct the next Star Wars film, due to release in 2026, which will feature Daisy Ridley. She's a Muslim lady. Her mother is Saba Obaid, who's a social worker. Her father's a businessman. Got to go to the Karachi Grammar School. She was a fellow. But when I think Star Wars fans, and I'm thinking who Star Wars fans would want directing things, if they didn't say a Pakistani-Canadian gender activist, I would be extremely shocked. We all know that George Lucas was a big gender activist and possibly born in Indonesia. We know that J.J. Abrams was hell-bent on fighting the patriarchy. All these people that Star Wars wanted all along, what made the franchise great, was the gender activism and the rainbow activism. That's all I'm saying. So we will continue to give Star Wars the benefit of the doubt, and maybe we should just, all like, let's start a Kickstarter for Star Wars, even though they don't need the money. Let's start a Kickstarter that says, give money to Star Wars for their next series, their next movie, because we know it will be right down the middle of the road, just action, just, good versus evil, and no gender stuff. No, there won't be 6 lesbian Jedi. There won't be some racialized witches who conceive life through the manipulation of the Force and can't understand why nobody likes that. Let's just pay for Daisy Ridley's music video that's going to happen. And let's just pay for the overall trauma and the psychiatry that the actresses will need after the hate that comes for them. Let's just go ahead and pay for that in advance. Somebody I know was telling me that their daughter has been traveling around the world following Taylor Swift for her concerts. And, Taylor Swift is also oppressed, as we jump from one oppressed female to another. And this is from Mary Morgan, who is on Tim Pool's podcast. She's one of the few women you can hear from in the right wingosphere who's not gonna be butthurt by everything that gets said about women. And she says Taylor Swift got her audience of 88,000 fans to scream "F the patriarchy" at her concert. Lady, you're a billionaire. Get your head checked. So let's listen. We want to get full screen first. So let's give the benefit of the doubt again to Taylor Swift. And I say this with a serious face because Taylor Swift is sure she's advocated for several left-wing politicians. Sure, she has advocated for not abiding by contracts when she sells the rights to her music. But let's give her the benefit of the doubt again. This is part of a song, and she's saying F the patriarchy because she is just writing in a contained world. Do you guys remember Aqua? The Aqua band who did I'm a Barbie Girl. They went from Barbie Girl to Dr. Jones to the other one in space. Their idea was every song's in its own little universe. So that's why it's weird. They were like Danish or whatever, of course. But their idea was that everything's in its own universe. That's why nothing makes sense from one video to the other. They're all about random topics. Yada, yada, yada. What Taylor Swift is doing is the exact same thing, right? Taylor Swift's songs exist in their own universe. And while you may think on the surface that she is a left-wing supporter, she's dating a vaccine salesman, she's telling women that it's okay to just go from man to man and you're the victim every time. That's all okay, because in Taylor Swift's universe that she's created for her music, she's about 14 years old. She's still dating adult men religiously and breaking up with them and writing about it. That's fine. She's traveling the world. People are just stealing her music. They're stealing her rights to her music. They're oppressing her. And the patriarchy is pretty much keeping her down. That's how I, as a big Swiftie, explain away all the things. And, I've had some discussions with friends about, is it worth it to criticize Taylor Swift? She's not the most insanely liberal. She's not Amanda Stenberg. She's not one of these other left-wing lunatic artists that's out there. I don't know, Katy Perry, something like that, who comes out and just says the most insane stuff, right? Is it worth it to tear her down? And, there's been many instances where I would just say, it's probably not. She's probably not the worst. But what people want to do is they want to create this lie that she supports Democrats, that she's done fundraisers, that she tried to get out of a completely legally binding contract by, trying to ruin a person's life, that she's dating a guy who gets paid by Bud Light and Pfizer. These are all lies because in Taylor Swift's, her musical world, She's actually the victim, and that's the where I tend to place all of this stuff in, is in the fictional world. Her relationship isn't real. Her ties to Democrats and, really crazy policies aren't real. She's just a teenage gal. She happens to be traveling the world and be a billionaire. And people are just stealing her music, and the patriarchy is oppressing her. I would want to take my daughter to a concert that cost $400 to get into. To really watch Taylor Swift, a 36-year-old woman or whatever, dance around in a dress and say F the patriarchy, and talk about being oppressed, and talk about how Justin Bieber has wronged her, and talk about how, whomever else she's dated has wronged her, because that's the message you want to send to your daughters. It's not your fault you signed the deal. It's not your fault that you don't understand the politics, as long as you're oppressed while you're doing it. As long as you say, future Andrew says his daughter, as long as you say, this is just music, then you can get out of anything. It's really good. It's worked a lot for gangster rap, and these are the footsteps I want to follow in. So when Taylor Swift does get a crowd to sing F the patriarchy, obviously we want to give her the benefit of the doubt and say this is her feelings within a song, and that's how people want to trap you into promoting a clip that may not be giving the correct context of the song. We can always fall back on the lie as a patriarchal bigot that she may or may not support some of the worst things in the world while still being a liar and being a billionaire and promoting bad policies. Step aside, truth tellers. Taylor Swift is on the down. Now, if you told me, though, should we do a commercial? What time are we at here? We're at 5:20. We'll save the ad. We're going through it. We'll do it live. That was Bill O'Reilly and Alex Jones combined into one. We'll do it live. We'll do the ad live. If you were to tell me that France's soccer team would be on the same side as Taylor Swift and Amanda Stenberg, I might call you a liar. We can't really create a fictional world for like we do with Star Wars and Taylor Swift about the French soccer team. But here we are. We're going to do our best to do it afterwards. But the French soccer star, whose name is Kylian Mbappe, and that's a fun name. It's nothing to do with Mbop. How old is Kylian Mbappe? Anybody in the chat want to guess? I'm going to say 22. He's one of the best. He's considered one of the best players in the world, and he's playing for France right now in the international European tournament called. He's 26 now. Wow, how time has passed. He's 25. Sorry, this is Kylian Mbappe. He's 25 years old. He's the best player on France's team, and he's one of the best players in the world. And he is talking about how that far right.
Je pense qu'on est dans un moment crucial dans l'histoire de notre pays. Il faut savoir faire la part des choses.
French is just a beautiful language. And what he's saying here is Francis has become embroiled in his country's political turmoil with comments on his fears of extremists and divisive ideas in the upcoming elections.
L'euro a une place très importante dans nos carrières, mais je pense qu'on est des citoyens avant tout, et je pense qu'on ne doit pas être déconnecté du monde qui nous entoure, et encore moins quand ça concerne notre pays. Voilà. On sait qu'on est dans un moment...
We know at a very important moment in the history of our country, he says. An unprecedented situation. That's why I really want to address the French people, and especially the young generation. I think we are a generation that can make the difference. I think we see today that the extremes are at the gates of power. We have the opportunity to choose the future of our country. That's why I call upon the youth to go out and vote, to really be aware of the importance of this situation. I hope to use my voice as best as I can, because you need to be able to identify your country. Identify with your country. You need to identify with our values, which are the values of diversity, tolerance, and respect. He's against Kylian Mbappe, speaking in third person, which we all know extremely intelligent people do in times of direty. Donald Trump is against extremists, against divisive ideas. He's saying that about himself. Kylian Mbappe is against extremists, against divisive ideas. Like I said, we have the opportunity to choose our country's future, and we have to emphasize the importance of that task.
Souligner, c'est très important. Et je pense que vous en
I
avez
think that
pleinement
everyone
conscience
here
ici,
is
mais
well
peut-être
aware
qu'il y a
of that,
plein de
but
jeunes
maybe
qui-
there's a lot of young people out there who aren't. If you look at the rate of abstention in the countryside, in disadvantaged urban areas everywhere, that's what I'm trying to give them a voice and speak to the people of my generation, because I used to be like that when I was younger. Saying to myself, my voice won't change anything. Yes, your voice can make a difference, he says. So he's not the only player on this team saying this, but what he's saying is, essentially, you might not know about the dire situation we're in. You might not know about politics. You don't know that the right-wing parties are winning. They're gaining ground now. And there's an election coming up in France. You might not know about the politics, but trust me, I'm a soccer player. I would not steer you wrong. Vote for who I think you should vote for. And he can say, of course, obviously, just go out and vote. He's not he's not promoting a particular party, but reading between the obvious lines when you say the diversity and the acceptance and the divisiveness of the rhetoric, we know that he means these are buzzwords to say right-wing people bad. And Kylian Mbappe doesn't know anything. If he did, he'd give specifics. He wants to be on the side of the establishment while also not giving his opinion and being respected as a soccer player, but he also wants to tell young people people younger than him, that they should agree with him blindly. And he wishes that some soccer player when he was a kid would come out and say, "Hey, don't do any reading, just go out and vote." And you've seen many iterations of this in your time where they say that young people need to get out and vote, and they don't tell them specifically who to vote for. They just say the buzzwords because they know as long as young people are voting, there's a much higher chance they'll vote for left-wing parties. If you're 25, you don't quite understand this yet, but if you're 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 75, 90, you know that it's not a brag to say the teens agree with you. It's not a brag to say, well, the young people are the ones who really believe in my ideas. That doesn't mean that they're good ideas. In fact, that usually means they're bad. I was stupid at that age. You were stupid at that age. If you are 21 years old, and unless you're reading about this, you're knee deep in politics and you're following it along, because I know a lot of people are smart enough to do that. But just by default, if you're not paying attention to things, you are stupid. You are. If your day consists of waking up, smoking a bowl, going to class, having a beer between afternoon and morning classes, going to the gym after school, getting home, smoking another bowl or drinking 5 or 6 more beers, playing video games, and then scrolling the internet a little bit and seeing some political things, that does not make you an informed voter, and that is not impressive if you agree with, somebody who's a politician's, it does not make it impressive for you to agree with a person whose career is being a politician. What that means is that person who's a politician has the same, their beliefs line up with a person who doesn't pay attention to politics at all. So when you're between 18 and 22 and looking to get a degree, you shouldn't be paying attention to that stuff. You should be saying, hey, what can I do to start making money? That's why I think everybody should think about raising the voting age to at least 22, maybe 25, so that you can focus on getting your life going. And then once you start having to pay taxes, and there's, taxation at risk in your income, and there's capital gains that you have to think about, and gas prices and heating prices and electricity prices, and you start getting into the flow of that, then you can start saying, hey, I want to vote the way that will affect my life in a positive way. And you'll start to read between the lines. But if your voting is based on bull smoking and abortions, then I'm going to have to go ahead and tell you that this isn't something that you should be partaking in. It'd be like if you're going to get your learner's permit to drive, and instead of practicing driving, you're just, Fortnite is the way that you're training for your driving course. Driving manual, I don't think so. I'm going to pick up a nice Teen Vogue in print and pick that up to prepare for my driving lessons. You see what I'm saying here? Is if you're not actually paying attention, then you're not probably qualified. And it's an interesting point that a lot of younger people make, and I'm not trying to shit on the young people that we love, because I do think this next generation is a good one, as opposed to the Zoomers and opposed to the Millennials. I think that if you're going to spend time talking about something, then you should probably know a little bit about it. Now, this is an argument that comes up with the Millennials a lot, where they say, you're not qualified to talk about climate change, or you're not qualified to talk about the female reproductive system. They're Southern in this example. But they will take an 18-year-old gluing their face to the road or something, or throwing fluffy pink or orange paint on a Picasso, and they'll say those people know what they're talking about. They haven't been formally educated in the topic, but those are the people I'm going with. So when an adult like AOC or Bernie Sanders or some of these people, they say, listen, this 16-year-old with green hair who just had 6 abortions, that's the person I want agreeing with my views. And since they agree with my views, I'm an amazing politician. The young people, they just get it. That's what it sounds like. Would you take Joe Biden's advice on how to play, I'm trying to think of a game other than Fortnite, Call of Duty Black Ops 19, or, maybe one of the new games that I'm playing, Chivalry? Would you take a 96-year-old's advice on that, having never seen the game before? No. So why are you taking Kylian Mbappe's advice when he's spending 8 hours a day playing soccer, then he's on a bus, then he's, going out and doing endorsement deals? Where is his public discourse on these topics? What is his citation on this? Show us a little bit of your work, and then maybe we'll understand what you're saying, as opposed to just, divisiveness, rhetoric, Putin's, stuff like that. I can say that because I'm French also. He's not the only player on the team who said stuff like this. There's a couple more. We could have seen his age there this whole time. I don't want to represent a country that doesn't correspond to my values or our values. Of course, he says it's our values speak. Oh, look, there he is speaking with the president of France before they headed to Germany. I wonder if he said it would be very helpful if you could help me shit on these extremists, this divisive rhetoric. Surely nobody told him some of the talking points. Opinion polls suggest the far-right anti-immigration national rally could come out on top for the first time in the country's history. Isn't it interesting that their polling is showing that this allegedly far-right political party could win an election? This allegedly, evil anti-immigration party could win this election. They talk about it like it's not a lot of people, right? They're like, it's so crazy. This fringe. What's going to happen is that, left-wing parties, Joe Biden or Justin Trudeau, they're going to get like 15% of a vote. And the people are just going to be like, holy shit, this is crazy. Everybody in my country is a racist. Now, you might say that that could work the other way, but these people have been in power for a long time, so people have learned what it's like living under them. And then when they stop liking it, some boomers and some 17-year-olds come together because neither of them have any responsibility, really, and they say, I can't understand how the rest of the country is such bigots. We need to usher in a little bit of communism. Mbappe was not the only French player to speak out. His teammate Marcus Thuram, son of legendary French soccer player and anti-racism activist, was even more direct. He called for French voters to fight daily to prevent the party from gaining power. Just fight. Commit crimes. He didn't say that. I can't say that he said that. But isn't it interesting that the son of an anti-racism activist is a leftist? What a surprise. French winger Ousmane Dembele last week urged his compatriots to mobilize to vote, saying the alarm bell has sounded. Generally speaking, it's been very rare for French soccer players to speak out in this way, said Tom Williams. But then again, it's 2025, and, we got to pay people to agree with us. Isn't it wild how the richest, most famous people in our societies, we've got a soccer player, we've got an internationally celebrated music artist, and we've got the star of her own TV show on Disney. Isn't it interesting that they're all saying that everybody's against them? You couldn't be richer, you couldn't be more famous, you couldn't have more privilege, but yet you're still oppressed, and other people have privilege, and everything's against you. Isn't that interesting how that works? It's almost as if it's a bit of a psyop, isn't it? Patreon.com/UOPod is where you can go to get our bonus content. We just posted a bonus podcast the other day. For $7, you can help us become Joe Rogan in terms of, muscle and skin tone and overall enlightenment. For $15 a month, you can become an OG super fan. And for $40 a month, you can be an unauthorized person and suggest topics or videos, which we have done in the past. We just posted the number 3 of the new bonus podcast with Uncle Hack, the comedian. And you don't even get the preview for that. I wonder if we can change that. If it's locked, you should still be able to see the preview. I don't know. But it's called Stay Away from Jesse Ventura. And we went out and did some streeters last weekend at a tech conference. We asked people about Elon Musk. We asked people about AI. We had a good argument with an Asian guy about, indigenous activism. We had a good argument with a green-haired guy who's about immigration. We had a lot of good footage there. It's going to be available on patreon.com/UOPod first, and you can only find it there. Another video you might want to check out is apparently I'm a manager on this channel, is my podcast with Marty O'Donnell. That is on Andrew Says YouTube. That is with the creator of Halo's theme song, and he talks about how Microsoft got Halo changed because they were afraid of being racist. And then you can go on over, if you still want to support me, if you're like, damn, I need to support Andrew even more, you can go to Blaze Media at theblaze.com and read some of our paywall articles. You will see a lot of articles that I have done that have attached interviews with comedians and other industry leaders. And this time, we talked to a bunch of leaders about AI and whether or not the media is lying to you about how dangerous it is. You will be surprised at some of the answers. I will give you a hint in one of them. A woman says she wants to create autonomous AI beings with a Soviet scientist. So there's that. Patreon.com/UOPod, our YouTube channels, which you're already on, and, of course, theblaze.com. Welcome back from the break, you guys. If you haven't noticed, I don't think you can see it. I'm going to take it out of there. Sorry, Kenny. I don't want to destroy anything. We have a pennant of the Washington Redskins. Why? Because this is illegal now. We want to keep history alive with Washington Redskins memorabilia. If you have any Cleveland Indians memorabilia, send it our way. Because this stuff is evil now, evil and racist, and we want to keep it alive. Not because it's actually evil and racist, but because they're trying to destroy history. And even though natives have, disagreed that this stuff should be destroyed, they're going to do it anyways. They're going to get rid of it anyways. I was going to get to the next story, but there's something else I wanted to show you guys. I was at a comic book store recently, and wildly enough, I was looking through some of these comic books, and there were some free ones being pushed out. Sorry, I'm trying to bring this image up for you guys of what exactly I saw. So there was free comic books, and also this was in like a closet. This I can't say that this was going to be a successful endeavor for this guy. There was a bunch of free comics that were put out by Marvel and DC for Free Comic Book Day, and this one was called Marvel's Voices, and this is rated T for teen, 13 years old plus. And then, so it looks innocent enough from the front. You'd go to the back, though, and we're celebrating Pride. So the first sign that you're a pervert is that you want children to be exposed to different sexualities or any sexuality at all. You wouldn't talk to a child about having sex with a woman. You wouldn't talk to a child about having sex with a girl. If you wouldn't talk to a boy like that. You wouldn't talk to a young girl about having sex with a man. You wouldn't be talking to 13-year-olds about sex, even though this is rated teen, 13 plus. That's the first sign that you're weird, that you want to talk to children about these things. So I see this, and I'm just like, watch. How long until I turn to a page with a trans person in it? I open it up, and it's got Spider-Man with his hair coming out of it for some reason. And then the next page I flip to, if we get past people wearing masks, was this one. And this is how quickly we got to trans. It's in the middle somewhere. And this is for 13-year-olds. And I took a picture of it so that you could see it. Peach is this guy's name. Leader of the commune. Trans woman. Hacker. Yorkie enthusiast. Currently really frustrated. So this transgender person is a communist and a hacker and works with a bunch of masked people to steal things. This is great. I mean, unless you're trying to say, transgender people are communists and criminals, I guess that's fine. But they're just trying to steal supplies, so they're actually just good people. So here's what it says in the rest of it. We'll just leave that part up for you. Is this really it? They say as they're ransacking a place. They must have just had a shipment go out, but there's still plenty of needles and syringes, so we're drug addicts too. Plus bandages, some antiseptic. Fine. It is what it is. Let's just get out of here before the security system's back online. I can only keep us hidden for so long. So the transgender hacker's a genius. Spider-Man then shows up. The transgender person's holding on to his Yorkie. And then we have there's the Yorkie. We got to put me back on full screen here. I should just do a whole thing on this. I don't know if you can see that. But then Spider-Man arrives, and in one part they're describing the commune, a Robin Hood-esque queer human anarchist crew who live and work together. So there are a bunch of gay communist transgender people who are hackers, and they work together to rob people, and this is for 13-year-olds. It's really interesting. One of them's biting Spider-Man. He's some sort of freak. Gambit shows up. I don't know if this is part of the same story. But then we got another part of Marvel celebrates indigenous stories and creators. This is all for 13-year-olds, by the way. And, when you might have been a kid, even in the early 2000s, it probably had stuff for video games. It probably had stuff for other comics. And even further back, you'd probably see stuff for, stupid things you can mail in and buy. But in 2024, what we want to advertise to children is about transgenderism, about queer communist people. And yes, I get they're the villain, but why are you talking about sexuality in a comic book for children? Imagine in 1978, Stan Lee was like, then showed up the Rhino. And Spider-Man didn't know what to do because the Rhino had irregular pronouns. He went by Zer, and Spider-Man didn't want to misgender him because that would have been mean. Could you imagine that? The X-Men showed up, and even though they were hell-bent on rescuing Wolverine, they thought that maybe that, the mountainside experimental, layer was owned by a black and brown indigenous person, so they didn't think they should ruin a person of color's workplace like that. That's really effing weird that we involve these things in children's cartoons and be like, what? We're not doing anything. And as soon as you put that in their face, they're just like, oh, you're killing us. So shout out to Peach, the leader and trans person in that comic book. We have enough time. We've got enough time to do one more story on Canada's government put out something that I know you're going to love. They put out, like an advisory, a little report about hate in Canada. And you know what it's like in Canada. You can't really gather people up to do anything. It's really hard to get people to agree on things, be active about things. But there's some hilarious stuff in there that I want to read to you. And this is from an article I wrote about it. Canada's federal police agency has identified hate groups, and they've noticed that they've become racially diverse. In 2024, a report called Hate Crimes and Incidents in Canada, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is the RCMP, which is basically our FBI, sought out to identify the source of hate crimes and explain the reasons behind them. It defined hate groups as any organization that can be characterized by its promotion of hate-based orientation or purpose. The report predominantly blamed populist politics for a rise in overall mean-spirited behavior, pinpointing 2016 as the first instance of a spike in hate crimes. Gee, what happened in 2016? Why, that would be the election of Donald Trump. All of a sudden, once Trump was elected, that really just, for the first time ever, we just had hate. This is a quote from the report. The first pronounced spike in hate crimes began in 2016 and coincided with the rise of populist politics and inflammatory rhetoric directed towards immigrant, racialized, and religious minority groups, the report claimed. The report also blamed COVID-19 for rising social polarization and, alongside a rise in populist politics, stated that xenophobia and racist rhetoric portrayed members of racialized and religious minorities as threats to community safety and national security. In an attempt to answer why people join hate groups, the RCMP said it was because members seek a sense of identity, meaning, and personal significance. While the government report claimed that research has shown hate groups to be overwhelmingly white and male, it had also said in the same breath that the groups are increasingly diverse. Quote, people who join hate groups come from all socioeconomic backgrounds, professions, and perhaps surprisingly, they appear to be increasingly racially and ethnically diverse. Isn't that something? So since 2016, since Trump became president the first time, all of a sudden there is hate everywhere. And it's been, we've been telling you it's been white guys this whole time, but all of a sudden we're seeing that it's not all white guys. That's probably, internalized racism. It's probably them, not realizing that if you don't vote for Joe Biden, you ain't black. All these things coming in to play here. So the Canadian government did a report on all these hate groups, and they started looking at them, and they said, hey, we can't focus on the ones that are just white anymore because they don't exist. They're pretty diverse. And I would like to say that since 2016, the powers that be, like the deep state sort of deal, they've basically been focused on, that's why intrinsically that Trump is a threat to the establishment, because since he came to power, they have done everything they can to convince you that the world is full of hate, that there are so many white supremacist groups out there, and that everybody's divisive and everybody's against you and everybody's oppressing you, because they saw that the population was mostly white in the Western countries, and they said that's the target. Because that had been simmering, ever since the early 2000s. It had been like, well, old racist white men are the cause for everybody's problems. And they took that as the target that they could to usher in what they eventually wanted, which was total control. And they said, these are the people who you should have a problem with, so let me distract you with all this racial divisiveness. Meanwhile, blaming the people that they say are the problem for the same thing that they're doing. So on one hand, they're dividing people, they're being divisive, they're crippling people, they're oppressing people. And then they say, it's actually not us, it's these people who are doing it, so be mad at them. And that's what leftists do very well, is everything they're guilty of themselves, they say other people are doing. Election fraud, racism, not caring about the little person, being divisive, caring only about skin color, doing racist hiring practices, caring and taking away people's rights. These are all things that they want to do, but they blame somebody else so that they're not the first ones to be targeted with that accusation. It's very easy to say, Trump and all these people deny elections, so when it is turned back around on them and pointed out that Hillary and Jill Stein and Stacey Abrams and all these people have literally denied elections. Stacey Abrams to this day has never conceded her election loss. When the finger is pointed back at them, they're just like, what are you talking about? I said that about you. You're the racist one. So what if everything I say has to do with race? You're the racist one. So what if I am telling your children in this comic that how cool being trans is, and that, we're part of a trans group of bandits and hackers. Isn't that cool? And also we have a Yorkie, but also Pride voices here, but also Indigenous voices in here. It's just like everything, they pump everything into you that they possibly can. Look, a black guy in a mask here. He must be immunocompromised. Everything that they accuse you of being is because they're doing it. You're trying to force these beliefs on me. It's actually the other way around. So when Taylor Swift and Amanda Stenberg and Kylian Mbappe come out and they say, I'm the most oppressed person, it's because they are accusing... It's classic guilt, They're accusing people of something that they know that they're guilty of. Taylor Swift got mad at somebody for, owning her music, so she said he was oppressing her. Really, she's trying to break out of a legally binding contract and, just welching on her side of the deal and trying to screw somebody over. Amanda Stenberg says everybody's, being oppressive to her and racist against her. And then she says she's the one saying she wants white people to cry, and she's having all these internalized thoughts that might make her sick. And of course, Kylian Mbappe saying, don't be divisive, don't vote for these people that are divisive. Meanwhile, he's coming on stage during a soccer tournament saying divisive things. It all comes together, and I think that when these people are finally elected out of office, you're going to see even more violence from them, even more Antifa, even more BLM. Because what will they have left? They've been telling people for about a decade, almost a decade now, that the other side is oppressing them and hurting them, and they want them to die, basically. And we should throw them in jail. We should get them out of regular life. They should not... The anti-vaxxers and the right-wingers and the far right and all these people, the xenophobes, should be removed from day-to-day society. And so when they only represent a small amount of people and they're voted out of office, they're going to tell their followers, the only way we can get this back is through violence. So I think, that's something that's possible. I don't think it'll be successful because they don't have the literal physical fortitude to do so. But I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's why you've seen increased, love attacks by people who are gender confused. I think that's why you'll see increasing taking of things that you are rightfully yours from stores. Because they're going to feel like, after 10 years, was I lied to? Was I wrong? Was I not able to see through the propaganda? And then it's Principal Skinner knows that it's the children who are wrong, so I got to overthrow the system. When communist groups fail, it usually ends up in a war against the communists. That's what I think history has taught people. Or they just collapse and everybody starves for a little bit. I didn't want to end on that, on starvation, but we're going to. Patreon.com/UOPod is the place to be. Shout out Marty O'Donnell, who said hello in the chat. Go ahead and watch our interview on my YouTube channel, Andrew Says, and check out our Patreon. There are new interviews going to be coming. We're going to get Mystery Editor Person X working on that. We had Mystery Camera Person X filming for us. And it's all going to be a good time. You're going to get to see my good arguments I had with, people over some pretty important topics, I think, in this day and age, especially immigration. And you've got real people out there who are willing to speak, for some reason, saying crazy things about immigration, crazy things about, indigenous activist groups. And they don't really know what they're saying. They just have a rehearsed script, and they've gotten really good at saying that script. So look out for that. We're going to get that edited for you this week. Remember, I wouldn't lie to you, except for maybe this once. Amanda Stenberg. Great song.
Turn it up, Jordan.